Standing with our friend Todd there, Gunner.
Haven't heard back from him. He's not there. Let's see here.
Womp. Is this the way you guys do things at Sports Take?
No, man. Usually guests are prompt.
That's true. Oh, there we go. Niners all damn day. Oh, hey! Gunner, look up. Surprise!
Hey, there he is.
Just saw I had to hit enter the studio.
No, all good.
Sorry about that.
Todd, how's it going?
Technology's getting me. All right. How you guys doing?
Good. Man, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'm always curious, and I'll start off with this question. Because whenever, and I've been lucky enough, and Gunner, I know you've been there a bunch too, but whenever I go to Dallas, it's always amazing to me that the rivalry exists more on our end than it does the Dallas end. Here in Philadelphia, it exists more. So what is your sense, covering the team for as long as you have there, ESPN Cowboys beat reporter, what is your sense of the Cowboys fan base when it comes to a Philadelphia big matchup like this?
I think this rivalry is, in the 21 years, whatever, it's kind of evolved. Like for Cowboys fans, I think it's whoever's good at the moment is their big rival. So back like Eli and Romo, right? And the Giants knocked him out of the playoffs. That, I think, was a bigger deal for the Cowboys, the Giants games. But now, obviously, I think it's the Eagles games because it's such a clear difference between the four teams. It's clearly Dallas and Philadelphia. I think Cowboys fans look at this one as a way, okay, how good is our team? Because they have no idea. The last time they played a really good team was San Francisco, and it was 42-10. Now they're playing a really good team again. And you want to say, fans are like, all right, are they for real or are they the same old Cowboys? No one really knows. And I think that's what's on the line for the Cowboys. Hey, they don't have, or Sunday, they don't need to win this game, but it can't be 42-10 because then the rest of the season just turns into it doesn't matter, which is strange to say with 9 games to go.
Todd, I'm a little surprised at the humble approach Dallas has taken coming into this game. Jerry Jones earlier the week said, hey, I don't want to talk about the Eagles. I don't want to poke the bear. You've heard players say, hey, look, we acknowledge the Eagles right now are the best team in the league. And if we want to get to where we want to go, we know we have to go through them. From your perspective, why are they in years past, Micah Parsons has said things about the Eagles-Cowboys matchup. Why do you think they've taken more of a low-key approach to this game?
42-10 at San Francisco. I think they put a lot of energy into that one, obviously, and that's the team that's knocked them out of the playoffs the last 2 years. Yep. And they were humbled. That's a nice way of putting it, I guess. So they know, Jerry saying I don't want to poke the bear. DeMarcus Lawrence saying, he's a guy last year said, well, we don't know how good they are. They haven't played us yet. And I think that was before Cooper Rush, before Dak even played, and Cooper Rush was at quarterback. And obviously Philly won that game up there. So I think, I don't know if there was like a message that went around to the 60 some odd players when you add up the practice squad guys and the coaches that said, hey, look, we had our chance against San Francisco and it didn't go well. Don't say anything this week that will get the Eagles riled up, or maybe the Eagles fans riled up more than the Eagles players. But they know. I mean, it's not their season, but if they want to win the division, you can't go down 2 games. Right. It's really 2.5 games, I guess, and then hope Philadelphia loses some games. Because as much as people talk about the Eagles' upcoming schedule, someone look at the Cowboys' schedule in December. It's Philly, it's Buffalo, it's Miami, it's Detroit, all back to back to back. I think Seattle's in there too. So that they get a pretty tough run as well.
Jeez.
We were obviously talking about our coordinators before the season, and we're still talking about the coordinators of the Philadelphia Eagles right now, Sean Desai, obviously, and Brian Johnson. But a big storyline nationally was Mike McCarthy saying not only was he going to be the head coach, but he was going to be the play caller. Looking at that offense right now, how would you assess Mike McCarthy, the play caller, not just the head coach so far this year?
I think he's been okay. I don't think it's been anything great. The statistics probably bear that out. And I know that, look at the points. They're whatever they are in the league. They're pretty high in the league, points per game. But some of that is because their defense scores points. Their special teams scores touchdowns and gets safety. So that inflates that a little bit. You've not seen as many explosive plays as you have in recent times. But I will say, the last 2 weeks against the Chargers, against the Rams, the offense has looked much better for whatever reason it is. And I think part of it is it was 40-0 against the Giants, 30-10 against the Jets, 38-3 against New England. You're really not running your offense in those games in the second half. You're just, let's get out of here and just run the clock, and who cares? So, and then add the fact that they didn't play it all in the preseason. So they didn't build up any kind of momentum or knowledge of what their identity was going to be in the preseason, carry it through, because those games were blowouts. I think the last 2 games, you saw more of what they want to be. And I think the last 2 games, you've seen Dak Prescott say, I have to use my legs. You don't have to run. That's not his game, especially with the injuries that he's had. But using his legs to make plays, to get outside the pocket and get to CeeDee Lamb, get it to Brandon Cooks, get it to Michael Gallup, get it to his tight end. I think that's been the big difference the last couple of weeks with Dak using his legs more.
Yeah, Todd, as my colleague admitted earlier in this show, before the season started, when we started sizing up Eagles opponents for the upcoming season, I immediately admitted, or should I say mentioned, a young man named DaRon Bland. And they were like, who? I said, watch for this kid if he gets a chance to play. And obviously one man's injury is another man's opportunity. You guys are there every day watching him. You saw samples of him last year. Has he exceeded your expectations? Because right now he's rated the #1 cover corner in the entire NFL and has only allowed 6 completions on his side.
And he's got 3 pick sixes.
Yes.
So, and the completion percentage against him as the nearest defender, I think it's like 47.1%. Yep. That's in the top 5 among corners, and Stephon Gilmore is right behind him. But he was a guy, he led their team in interceptions last year as a rookie. And yes, he's exceeded expectations. He was a 5th round pick? See, I can't even remember. Absolutely no one, if they thought he was going to do this, they wouldn't have drafted him in the 5th round. They would have drafted him in the 2nd or 3rd round, right? I mean,
and wouldn't have paid Trayvon Diggs all that money.
Well, no, they still would have paid Trayvon because he's a guy who can take the ball away too. And maybe you don't, but you know what? And it's a good thing they have Gilmore as well, because as you guys know, you need every cornerback you can get. I think Philadelphia is finding that out right now with what's their cornerback health situation.
Well,
the slot. Who's going to be in the slot this week?
Well, we were debating that. It could be Eli Ricks. It could be Sidney Brown. We don't know. It's one of the biggest mysteries that we're still trying to debate as we get closer to this game. But it has been mix and match for this team because of injuries for the most of the season.
And that's, you look at where CeeDee Lamb now the last few weeks has done more outside than in the slot, but he's been really effective in the slot for a good spot of his career. Yep. So that's a matchup I think the Cowboys look at and say, okay, let's go. I do have an interesting stat for you guys. Tim McManus and I did this deal on this matchup this week.
Yeah.
Guess how many interceptions Dak Prescott's thrown at Lincoln Financial Field in his career?
How many?
0.
What?
0.
No kidding.
No picks.
Hey, we'll be using that on our pregame show Sunday.
Just give me and Tim the credit. We're good.
You got it. You got it. That is amazing. Speaking of those interceptions, the thing that I keep going back to, Todd, and it is amazing, and it goes to your point about, the points per game look great offensively, but when you really dissect it, you talk about 3 pick sixes for DaRon. I didn't realize DaRon Bland is tied for your team lead in touchdowns. That is bonkers. Like, as an offense, look, bottom line is if your team's a really good team and you're scoring points, then your team's really good and you're scoring points. But as an offense, do they take that at all as a challenge that the defense has carried a lot of that, or at least a good amount of that scoring load for him this season? Yeah,
I think that, Mike McCarthy said he came into the season knowing the defense would be the identity of this team. And it certainly is when you look at the, Micah Parsons and obviously Diggs before he gets hurt, DeMarcus Lawrence, and how they play and what they've done and the big plays that they've made, splash plays. But the offense knows it has to do more. The running game, 3.9 yards per carry, that has to improve. Their offensive line hasn't really been together all that much. Don't know if it's going to be together this week with Tyron Smith, even his backup Chuma Edoga has an ankle and now a knee deal that limited him in practice on Thursday. So you might be talking about a rookie left tackle and Awesome Richards maybe having to play if Tyron Smith isn't good enough to go. I mentioned the big plays, the lack of them early on in the red zone. I think they're 9 of 20 something so far this season. That's been a huge difference. Last year, they led the league in red zone offense, scoring 71% of the time. So the offense knows it has to get going. And again, I'll come back to the last 2 weeks against the Chargers, against the Rams. It's been a lot better. But the run game, I think, that's the deal that everybody talks about with the Cowboys from DeMarco Murray in 2014 on, is how well they've run the ball. This year, they've not run it. They've run it a lot, but they've not run it well. And some of that is the blowouts and, you're just kind of trying to get out of games and things. But when they absolutely positively need to have something, the run game's not really delivered as much as they wanted yet.
Hey, Todd, I'm really shocked at the disparity in the passing game numbers. When you look at CeeDee Lamb with 46 catches, the next closest guy to him is the running back, Tony Pollard, with 26. What has not been happening for Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks in terms of helping to stretch defenses more?
Brandon Cooks he's been more involved. Again, it seems like every time I'm saying it, it's the last 2 weeks. Like the season just started 2 weeks ago or something. But for Brandon Cooks, in some ways, it has just started. They've done a better job of getting him involved. Michael Gallup just simply, there's one game he had 10 targets and 3 catches.
Jeez.
So it's been a struggle for him. And he's healthy. They want to give him the ball. They do design some things for him. And it just hasn't happened. And I think last week you saw he really split time with Jalen Tolbert more than he had in any other game. So I wonder if that's something to watch Sunday as the Cowboys get going with their pass game. Jake Ferguson, their tight end, has done a better job here filling in for Dalton Schultz. He's a guy that they miss really maybe in the red zone as well, but had a great touchdown last week against the Rams. Dak has a lot of confidence in him. And if you look at Dak's history, he's trusted tight ends from the beginning, from Witten to Schultz. And now I think Ferguson is getting into that mix as well. But it's not CeeDee Lamb and the rest of the guys, but certainly, and I know it certainly looks that way. Yeah. But I do think Dak tries to mix it around. But Gallup is the guy that it just hasn't happened for him yet. It better happen for him soon, or else, the Cowboys get out of his contract after this year.
Todd, from your vantage point and being around the team and all that, how does this team look at the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of their turnover rate this year? Because that's not something that the Eagles have done in years past. That's something Jalen Hurts really hasn't done in years past, obviously in a small sample size. So if you're the Cowboys and you've been taking the ball away among some of the best teams in the NFL doing that this year, will that be a focus, kind of focusing in on making sure above all other weeks that you take advantage of the turnover battle?
Yeah, that's the MO anyway, right? I mean, that's what they've done under Dan Quinn. They've became the first team since the Steel Curtain Steelers to lead the league in takeaways in 2 years in a row. Those Steelers did it 3 years in a row. The Cowboys are up there. I think they have 13 takeaways, maybe tied for third and fourth in the league or whatever. But I think they look at Hurts's turnovers a little bit like Dak's turnovers last year and say, that's not him. Like they're viewing it more as a one-off, but they know they're going to get opportunities and they know they have to take advantage of them when presented. And we talked about DaRon Bland. The ball's always around him and he'll be matched up on AJ Brown some, as will Gilmore. Gilmore has 2 picks. The ball seems to find him. To me, I don't know if this is a game so much about how they match up outside against Smith and Brown and all that. How can they stop their run? Because to me, the Cowboys' run defense is still the unknown quantity here. Yeah. It's not a big front. They don't have a lot of size. Like, it's funny, everybody's talking about, can they stop the tush push this week or brotherly shove, whatever you guys call it up there. They replaced a 255-pound linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch, with a 218-pound linebacker, Marquise Bill.
Oh, jeez.
So don't get in 3rd and 1. Don't get in 4th and 1 because you know it's coming, and no one stopped it yet. So I think this is a week where the Cowboys know they're going to be tested maybe first on the ground by the Eagles.
Well, I'll just tell you this right out of the gate, Todd. And Gunnar, I'm just going to interject with this one thing. The Eagles do a good enough job of stopping the run on their own. In other words, they just get away from it. They're like, you know what? It's been enough. That's enough running the football. Now we're just going to throw the hell out of it. So if you're a Cowboys fan, that's one thing you look forward to.
Maybe Dak is dropping secrets on Brian Johnson since they were together at Mississippi State.
There you go.
Hey, I got to share this. The other day when I reached out to Todd and asked him, could he be on the show today? Initially, he said, yeah, let's do 11:30. I said, okay, that's perfect. And then he hit me back later. He said, hey, can we do 12? Jerry speaking, and I got to hear that. Why can't anybody put the kibosh on Jerry? I understand it's his toy, his kingdom, but he always says something, I think, that contradicts what a coach might tell you or not tell you later in the week. and kind of puts a coach in a bind in terms of revealing information that normally you don't reveal early in a week. You just kind of wait, and I jokingly say every time we talk about the Cowboys, his son should lock him in an office somewhere, take away the key until the season's over, and feed him meals under the door, and don't let him have any access to any microphones or anything like that.
Well, we don't want that, so
I
you
know
shouldn't
you don't.
want that.
I know you don't.
And I will. Jason Garrett had a line. There's a lot of things that come with the supper when you're with the Dallas Cowboys. This is one of those things that comes with the supper when you're with the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to tell Jerry don't go on the radio? Seriously, like, who's going to tell him that? And you're not. Someone's going to say, Jerry, you can't say that.
His son, Steven should be able to control him.
Okay, sure. Hadn't happened yet. It ain't going to happen even now that he's 81 years old. So, but yeah, he was on the radio today talking. And I tweeted it right before I came on with y'all. Yeah. That this isn't about measuring sticks. This is about getting the win because the win matters most. And he said this is a playoff game. So he got away from the script he gave us after the Rams game, and he knows what's on the line this week. Okay. And I think the players do too.
Okay,
fair enough.
But I don't want him to not talk. Wouldn't you guys like to hear from Jeffrey Lurie every now and then?
No.
He's
if
not.
You didn't like what was going on, you wouldn't want to hear from the owner?
I will say this about Jerry Jones, though. He is dynamic. He's not dynamic in terms like he's not a rah-rah speech guy, but Jeffrey Lurie is more of, I don't want to piss off anybody. I don't want to upset anybody. Right. Jerry Jones doesn't give a damn. And I'll say this, and I still to this day, Todd, think it's the most perfect way to describe Jerry Jones. I worked behind the scenes on Sunday Night Football for 11 years. And whenever Fred Gaudelli, the producer of Sunday Night Football, now in the broadcast in the Football Hall of Fame, would always describe Jerry Jones to people as, and this is public, I'm not breaking any news here. He would always describe it. If you were to make a movie that had a football owner in it, Jerry Jones is central casting. Like he is, that's the most part, and it's true because you want that dynamic owner, face of the franchise, who always has something to say. And Todd, from your perspective, and yes, from ours as well, covering a rival team, it's always good to have that owner talking a lot.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a pain. I got to admit, like, it was before the Rams game where he came up to us at practice and just started, "You guys got anything?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't want anything today. I wanted an easy day. Come on, Jerry, what are we doing?" And then he talked, and he didn't really say anything super crazy or anything like that. He talked about DeMarcus Ware going to the Ring of Honor and things. But having him available after games. Now, he's not been available after a road game this year. Maybe that changes this week. But having him available after every home game, I think Mike McCarthy feels lonely sometimes in the interview room because the vast majority of us are waiting for Jerry to walk outside the locker room while a handful of people in with the head coach after a big win, big loss, or whatever. But I don't want him to stop talking. I know that. And you mentioned straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah.
Let's go to North Dallas 40. Everybody's seen that movie.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
Think of that owner, right? I mean, that guy was he was a little out there too.
There you go.
It's one of my all-time. Matter of fact, I put that at number one as my all-time favorite sports movie. And a lot of people are like, "Huh?" There's a lot of people that haven't seen it. I watched that movie. Matter of fact, my wife a long time ago bought me the DVD version of it. So once every 3 or 4 months, I'll pop it in and watch it. I love that movie. Are you surprised that the Cowboys didn't make any moves before the trade deadline? Eagles made moves. Niners made moves. Seattle made moves. Niners made a big move getting Chase Young. Seattle
going to be healthy by the end of the season, by the way.
I don't know. Well, you look at that 8-man rotation they have in the trenches, though. With the addition of him now, they added Randy Gregory earlier. Are you surprised that Dallas?
I was just going to say about Randy Gregory, if he could have played a lick, I don't know if they would have gone after Chase Young. So I think that tells you what Randy Gregory's done. He's not really done very much in the time that he's been out there. I think that has to be a part of it. But about the Cowboys and not making a move. Yeah. Not necessarily, because what everybody thinks the Cowboys is, and they're big spenders in free agency. No, they're not. They always, Jerry's gonna make us big deal. Okay, Amari Cooper in 2018, that was 5 years ago. The best deal he's made is probably trading down and still getting Micah Parsons a couple years ago. Okay. So I'm not really surprised. Should they have done something? Not because Philly did this or San Francisco did that, but maybe there was a way to improve your team. But I will also say, and I hate when people use the cap as an excuse and a reason not to do something because you can always make it work. But they do have to sign Parsons. They do have to sign Lamb. They do have to sign Dak if they want to keep all those guys. So you need Derrick Henry would have made sense because he's in the last year of his deal, but they didn't have a pick in rounds 4, 5, and 6 next year. Kind of hard to make a deal. And are you going to give up a 3rd-round pick, a 2nd-round pick for a guy who maybe is on a 10-game rental? I don't think you do that either. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of different reasons why it didn't come together for the Cowboys, and now they can say, hey, we like our team, because what else are you going to say?
Well, the thing that made me ask you that question was this, and you just said it a moment ago. Dallas is undersized in the trenches, and you look at what Buffalo did. They go out and get Linval Joseph, who the Eagles had last year, to show up their run defense and get a little bit stouter in the trenches, and that's why I found it somewhat shocking that Jerry looked at this team and even said it on Monday. Our mindset is we are going to stand pat. Unless somebody comes to us, we are not actively going to go out there. And when you look at teams at this point, especially jockeying for positions, the number 1 seeding coming up, every team identifies some area they feel they could get a little bit better at.
I would say on defensive tackle, they did draft Mozzie Smith in the 1st round, so it's time for him to start playing a little bit. And Jonathan Hankins has been really solid in the middle for them this year too. I think those 2 guys have to play a bigger role this Sunday for the Cowboys in stopping the run. But I thought maybe linebacker, because Leighton Van Ersch's injury, maybe that would have been a spot they got. But, they signed Rashaan Evans a couple weeks ago, a former 1st-round pick, obviously on the Eagles practice squad, I think, to start the year. Maybe he's the guy that can help as he gets more accustomed to the system and what the Cowboys want. He'll be active this week, played mostly in a special teams role last week.
Todd, there was a big talking point earlier in the week, thanks to Micah Parsons, and he seems to provide the sound bites over the last couple of years, whether it's Jalen Hurts or is it the team, or the most recent one now talking about how he needs Cowboy Nation, quote unquote, to show up at the link. In Philly, maybe it's just because this is our market and we hear it all the time, but we hear about stadium takeovers from Philadelphia. We hear about quarterbacks practicing the silent count, even though it's going to be a home game, because they know busloads of Philadelphia fans are going to be coming out there. And I know there's Cowboys fans around the nation, as you do as well.
Yeah.
But can you recall a lot of instances where there's necessarily been either busloads of Dallas fans from Dallas going to other stadiums and taking over stadiums, and wow, this really felt like a home game type of atmosphere? Because I can't remember too many of them, but please go ahead.
I honestly, it's almost every game but Philly. The Chargers game 2 weeks ago, Monday Night Football.
Okay.
Predominantly Cowboys fans.
Wow.
The Giants game to start the season, predominantly Cowboys fans. Now it's 40-0. The Giants fans had nothing to really say. When they go to Washington, same thing that the Eagles experience when they go to Washington. There's Cowboys fans everywhere, and it's not that people are coming from Dallas and going to those spots. There's so many fans up in that corridor. I have a friend who grew up in Connecticut, lived in New York for a good portion of his life. He's a diehard Cowboy fan only because his dad was a big Giants fan. So he's like, I'm going to become a Cowboys fan just to irritate my dad, and he remains a Cowboy fan to this day. So there won't be a Cowboy fan takeover in Philadelphia, because I don't think any opposing team takes that stadium over.
No.
Maybe because they're afraid of what could happen to them if they go. But I think in just about every other place the Cowboys do go to, even in San Francisco, they lost 42-10. There was, let's say the place holds 65,000. There were 20,000 Cowboys fans there. The Cowboys fans travel. They just must have a hard time getting to the 215, I think.
Hey, Todd, two players in particular that I think have the potential to be electric in the Cowboys' arsenal. Kevontae Turpin, we know what he is in the return game, punt return game, and a young kid, Deuce Vaughn. Are they trying to integrate them more in the offense? Because that kid Vaughn is like Boston Scott here, little but shifty and very quick. And Turpin has the speed. I see they throw the ball to him occasionally. I'm a little surprised they don't try to integrate him more into the passing game, unless he just has hands of stone.
No, I mean, you're right on Turpin and him getting more involved, and they do run more 10 personnel, no tight ends out there, and just one back. He'll be out there and do things. They lined him up in the backfield against the Giants in the opener. They do want to use his speed as much as they can, but there are times where you're like, okay, you want to get him the ball. That means you're not getting it to CeeDee Lamb. That means you're not getting Brandon Cooks. That means you're not getting to the tight ends. So or Tony Pollard. So you have to kind of balance that out. As far as Deuce Vaughn is concerned, he's been inactive the last couple of weeks, and I think that'll continue this week. It's not no fault of his own. I think he needs special packages and how they go about it.
Okay.
And right now, with how they're playing, there's not a room for a special package for Deuce Vaughn, and he's not a big special teams guy. So if you're going to be the third or fourth running back, you better play a big special teams role, and he doesn't play that right now.
Okay.
Todd, last thing for me anyway, I just want to ask you this question about Dak Prescott, because in watching him against the Cardinals and watching him against the San Francisco 49ers, it seems like getting him off his spot, and it feels like this is so cliche for a lot of quarterbacks, but with Dak in particular, that 49ers game was a very shaky game, it looked like, for Dak Prescott, where they were able to really get after him in the backfield. And the Eagles, of course, are no stranger to being able to get in the backfield. So when it comes to Dak, if he is out of the pocket, are you noticing a much lesser version of Dak Prescott, or are you seeing somebody who is still keeping his eyes downfield and being able to make the play?
No, I hate saying it for the 57th time. The last two games has been the Dak Prescott of the last couple of years, not the first few games. And I think the San Francisco game was the wake-up call for him, where he even said, there are times I could have gotten out of the pocket and made some plays. Again, not to run necessarily, but to make some plays in the passing game. And you saw last week a touchdown to CD, gets out, breaks free. CD, the Rams just forgot to cover him for some reason, wide open for a touchdown. So, and part of me wonders if, like, let's say the first month of the season, where he's running McCarthy's system and kind of getting used to what McCarthy wants and the changes that they made on the offense, if now he's just more comfortable in understanding the right times to get out to make plays. And he called it listening to his feet, not just listening to his feet on where the ball goes to throw it, but listening to his feet when the first two guys are covered and how he can buy some time and where he can escape. I think the last couple of weeks there have been natural gaps with how the Chargers and Rams play such wide techniques. Maybe that'll be a little different this week, but I think you've seen Dak look more comfortable in the scheme and then in off-script plays than he was in the first month of the season.
Did the term Texas Coast offense ever catch on? I remember they were saying that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, again, the last 2 weeks, it's not been referred to as much.
Okay.
Because I think the Texas Coast offense has become Dak make plays with your feet. And
okay. All right. Fair enough.
Man. Yeah.
Todd, thanks so much for joining us, man. Really
appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Really all right, man. Take care, dude.
Todd Archer right there, ESPN Cowboys beat reporter. I've never talked to him before. Really, what a great guy.
Insightful, great dude, man. I enjoy having him on. Tim McManus, last year, I asked Tim, and I said, Tim, who's your guy down in Dallas to go to? Because, we always like to go behind enemy lines each week and get a perspective from the opponent. And he immediately said, you got to talk to Todd Archer. If he's available, we had him on last year. I said, we got to get him back this year. So he was gracious enough to accommodate us today. So Todd's a good dude, man. And anytime you've been around as long as he has, it tells you that he's doing his job well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I just looked over at the chat, and Dank Kelly Green Burrito, great name as always. Sensible. I feel like that's the highest compliment we can give to any either Cowboys fan or Cowboys reporter. Oh, they were actually sensible. No way. They exist. That's incredible. So I really enjoyed that conversation, man. And the stuff about Dak Prescott and getting on the same page as his head coach and play caller. And I think the Texas Coast offense is just such a hokey name, but that's what they decided to call it. I feel like there's a lot of truth to that. But then again, I think the Eagles have a good opportunity to kind of make them uncomfortable again.
I do too. You've got to get pressure on Dak. You've got to, number one, force him off his spot. But as Todd said, he's been making better throws, on the move as well this year compared to last year. But still, Dak is not one of the fastest guys in the league. When you talk about quarterbacks who get outside the pocket, you're talking about a Tua, you're talking about a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson. He's not of that caliber. But if you just let him float outside eventually, and that's the case with any quarterback, you let a quarterback stay upright and float outside long enough, he's going to find somebody down the field. And because this Eagles pass defense has been so inconsistent, that's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all for this Eagles defense.
I'm with you. Gunner, I got 4 more points I want to bring to your attention, and I want you to tell me whether or not they're going to be a big factor in this Eagles game, because it's 4 of the 5 things that I'm really looking at in this Eagles-Cowboys matchup. It's you and me the rest of the show. It's our fine chat people as well. We'll get them in the conversation. And then you guys also like to do your power rankings at this point in the season?
At the in the 1 o'clock hour in our football segment, Rob and I always do it's a weekly thing. And when you look at how teams have fallen by the wayside in recent weeks, my Power 5, it was hard to come up with a Power 5, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I've left 4 teams that have made my Power 5 in previous weeks are not on my Power 5 right now.
Look at that. Look at that. We'll dissect it all coming up here when